The phrase "study well, otherwise you won't be able to find a good job" loses its sense when we find out how our idols and other famous people studied. Einstein was considered retarded. Jobs and Zuckerberg abandoned their studies at university. John Travolta preferred dancing instead of going to school. Eminem was expelled from school because of his music, and Fedor Bondarchuk failed his MGIMO entrance test. But nevertheless, this did not prevent them from becoming professionals in their field. Well, let me bring to your attention a list of people who studied very poorly but still managed to succeed. One of the most famous D students is thought to be Albert Einstein, but in fact this is not entirely true. There are several facts from his biography that were misunderstood and therefore gave rise to myth that he was a D student and slacker. For example, many people know that Einstein has 1 in physics, but that didn't prevent him from becoming a great physicist himself. But in fact, schools in Europe sometimes have a different grading system, which is opposed to ours. And the highest grade is 1, not 5. Also, teachers often said that Albert would never achieve anything in life. But this was not because he was an ignoramus. On the contrary, it was because he was too smart, which annoyed many. Thus, if the teacher could say something stupid during the lesson, young Einstein could not hide his smirk, which influenced the attitude of teachers towards the student. But the fact that Albert began to speak late and his parents even suspected that he was mentally retarded is true, but actually even though the child wasn't eager to communicate until the age of 3, then all of a sudden he began to generate full-fledged sentences. Now there is even a term introduced by the sociologist and theorist Thomas Sowell, Einstein syndrome, aka late talker. According to Sowell, many gifted people also had developmental problems at an early age. A good example is Bill Gates, who considered many school subjects so boring that he preferred not to learn them at all. His parents tried to motivate him by paying money in return for excellent grades, but he didn't last long. Nevertheless, despite poor grades, Bill managed to become a world-famous entrepreneur, create Microsoft company, and enter the list of the richest people in the world with a fortune of $124 billion. And it doesn't mean that Bill did not study at all. It's just that instead of insipid school textbooks, he preferred to read books that were interesting to him and useful for future activities. Steve Jobs was not a D student but got an A very rarely. Most commonly, he received B and C, which is equivalent to 4 and 3 in 5-point system. But anyway, he eventually abandoned his studies in college. In 1972, he entered Reed College in Portland, but did not stay there for even a year. It was a private social sciences-oriented college, which had been considered one of the most expensive in the country, and it was not easy for Steve's parents to pay for his education. Then he told his parents that he saw no sense in wasting a huge amount of money on useless education. Back in secondary school, Steve attended Hewlett-Packard classes in Silicon Valley, and this was the place where his father worked. Steve had an experience of working in a computer factory and had the opportunity to work on computer projects, the opportunity that regular kids didn't have because they had no right equipment. Because of all this, a usual school routine seemed so boring to Steve. Zuckerberg might not have been a D student at school, but he also dropped out of the university, namely Harvard. Although the faculty where he studied was not related to IT, Mark studied psychology. But during his studies, he also attended programming courses, so anyway, he constantly studied what was interesting to him, mastering his knowledge and skills. Okay, we've got a picture of billionaires, but what about Hollywood stars? Well, Quentin Tarantino also considered going to school to be an absolutely boring activity. He didn't try hard enough, got bad grades, and ended up dropping out of school. After that, he got a job in a video store with films for adults as a cashier and later began to work in a video rental. Even as a child, Quentin adored cinema and viewed plenty of films. He wanted to become an actor and constantly acted out various scenarios with his toys. When Quentin worked at the video rental, he also took acting classes after work and even lied on his resume that he took part in films like Dawn of the Dead and King Lear to make the impression of an actor with some kind of experience. However, this did not help him to get the role. Meanwhile, the idea to write screenplays did not belong to him but to producer Lawrence Bender, whom Tarantino met at one of the parties. He convinced the future director that writing screenplays is his talent. talent. Actor John Travolta also quit school for the sake of dancing, which he adored. Actually, the role of the dancer in the film Saturday Night Fever became a life-changing moment for him as an actor. It was after this film that John was first nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor. By the way, if Travolta had not become an actor, he would certainly have become a first-class pilot. The actor was in love with aviation from an early age, and since his family lived near airport runway, he constantly watched the planes flying over the house, imagining himself at the helm. As an adult, Travolta underwent training. To obtain a private pilot's license, it was necessary to pass 35 hours of theory and the same amount of practice. After that, the students took the state exam under the PPL-FAA program for obtaining the license. By the way, Angelina Jolie also passed this exam and has this license as well, so John eventually got an education, even though not at school or at university. As for musicians, there are not only a large number of D students but also troublemakers and bullies. Despite the feeling of inferiority caused by the teachers who didn't hesitate to call her foolish, Avril Lavigne could always fight back if boys bullied her. They even became afraid of her. The rock star did not graduate from school as well, having decided to concentrate all her energy on creativity and music. By the way, her parents supported her daughter's desire and even built a rehearsal space for her so that she could practice. Eminem was a D student and hated school not only because he didn't see the point of attending classes, but also because his relationships with classmates didn't work well, to put it mildly. Once the future rapper even spent about a week in a coma after a conflict with the main bully of the school. Back then, writing lyrics was the thing that helped him to feel just a tad better. Instead of directing his energy into aggression, he directed it into music and got engaged in hip-hop. Listening to some of his songs such as Brain Damage, one can understand how the world-famous rapper felt during his school years. He was also expelled from school because when he was called to answer the paragraph about the American Constitution in front of the class, he decided to rap his own track with obscene language in it. And what can I say, Russian celebrities were also far from being considered good students at school. Singer Nyusha liked only a few subjects: handicraft classes, physical culture, technical drawing, literature, and English. In fact, she was focused only on them, getting C in other subjects. However, teachers didn't scold her for that. Everyone knew about her passion for music and encouraged her in this, especially since Anna, which is the real name of Nyusha, often performed at school events and contributed to the good image of the school. Maria Shurachkina, Nyusha's stepsister and six-time world champion in synchronized swimming, also went to this school. Actress Ekaterina Klimova could hardly cope with the exact sciences such as mathematics, physics, and chemistry, but also from the early age she played well on stage and took part in school plays. Despite the fact that Klimova's certificate did not have the best grades, didn't prevent her from entering Mikhail Shapkin Higher Theatre School and to build her acting career thereafter. Fedor Bondarchuk was mainly raised by his grandmother, since his parents, actress Irina Skoptsova and director Sergei Bondarchuk, were too busy with their work. Fedor received bad grades, skipped classes, and led not the most healthy lifestyle. And after graduation from school, he tried to enter MGIMO but failed the introductory essay, making more than 30 mistakes in it. Then, on the insistence of his father, Fedor got himself together and entered GIG, which he successfully graduated from. But let's be honest, dislike this school was not the only thing that united the heroes of our video. Every one of them has something else in common: they never stopped studying. So it cannot be said that education is unnecessary in general. We need knowledge to acquire a profession and then to do things you love. It's impossible to become a competent specialist without knowledge.